Are you looking for inspiring conversations about faith, film, and life? You're in the right place. Here's the host who knows the right questions to ask, Father Edward Looney.
Hey everybody, it's Father Edward. Grateful you're tuning in for another conversation. Today I'm bringing you a conversation about film, about a movie that I discovered over on Tubi, which, if you're unfamiliar with Tubi, it's kind of this free platform. They never take a credit card, they say, and it was quite popular around the Super Bowl time because that's when where the Super Bowl aired. But I came across the movie Searching for the Elephant and was able to watch it and just thought it'd be great. I had an invitation, an opportunity to speak with the producer and the director of the film and one of the actors and co-writers as well. So today I'm speaking with David Elford and Joseph Stamm. So thanks so much for joining me for this conversation.
Well, thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, first of all, just, I thought maybe what we could talk about today is just kind of the making of a film, kind of from concept to ending up on a streaming platform and everything in between. But just as we were talking a few moments ago, the two of you, it seems that you've been connected for a while and that you both you produced and directed the film. You're the founder of Cross Purposes Productions, David, and so then Joseph comes on board. So how did the two of you get connected in this collaborative work?
Well, I've known Joseph since he was a little boy. Our families are long-term friends. When I started making films in about 2019, I had the idea of making a little short film and thought, well, this will be fun. I'll get some friends together. We'll shoot it over a long weekend and we'll have a good time with it. And we'll see where it goes. And the little film was called Cross Purposes, and which is what we eventually named the company. But we did a casting call, and we just were looking for a 16-year-old boy who was stricken with cancer. That's what the role was requiring. So I did a casting call and auditioned about 30 young men. And Joseph was one of those who auditioned, and he got the role. And he just simply had a natural quality to him that was just so beyond his years. And so he played a lead role in that film. And then when the next film rolled around, Joseph's like, I like writing. I'm like, you do? Okay. So I said, here's a scene in this film that I'm working on, a full-length feature that we did called Found. So here's a scene I'm working on. Take a crack at it and see what you think. And I thought, well, I'm a teacher. I thought I'll make this an educational experience for him. So he came back with the scene, and the scene was really quite good. And I was like, well, I'm going to use this in the movie. So before it was all said and done, Joe was helping out with the script in the film. And the film is about a young boy who's up in the Appalachian Mountains, who's grown up off the grid and has no sense of modern society at all. And that boy finds himself suddenly alone and thrown into the modern world, kind of AKA Huckleberry Finn kind of style. And so when it came time to cast the role, well, nobody knew the part better than Joseph did. So it seemed like a natural conclusion to cast him in that role.
Okay. Wow. That's kind of incredible, just to think about that little storyline. Sounds like a movie I'd like to go out and find wherever it might be found, streaming or whatever. So
yeah, that one is Found. And so that one's on Amazon Prime and Tubi, like you just mentioned.
Okay.
It's out there as well. But yeah, so I started writing with David then, and then he wrote the next film, Royal Ashes, and that's the first time I kind of stepped into directing. I directed a short by myself to kind of learn that aspect of it. It was kind of a natural progression from writing. You have a lot of control over the story in the writing process, and then you kind of have to give it up when someone goes and directs it. And so maybe that's just the control freak in me, but it was like, okay, now it's a natural progression to want to have a say in that step too.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, it's just interesting, I'm assuming with the title Cross Purposes, faith-based. And so, it's just interesting how God kind of brings the right people into your life at the right time and, kind of creates this trajectory for the next several years and projects and everything like that. So
yeah, it's really interesting. We are in a small town in Southwest Virginia. And it's the last place on planet Earth you'd think you could make movies. So when it was time to make a film, I did what a lot of people did. I had a script and I was like, gosh, I think this would be good. I found one friend who had been involved in a short film before and talked to him. And he knew somebody who could run the camera, who knew someone who could run the sound, who knew someone who could do props. And before you know it, we had a little team together. And who knew in this small little town that God would bring together all these people to make a film. And so it turned out to be an award-winning film that went on to the Christian film festivals and it won awards and competed against some of the largest movies of the year. And it's just a little short film. And it was all done with a bunch of friends in a small town in Southwest Virginia. So what I say about filmmaking is it's for anybody, anywhere. If you want to do it, just start talking to people around you. You'll be shocked how much talent's in your own backyard.
Yeah, so let's talk about making a movie because you've made a few now. And so the latest that came across my desk, Searching for the Elephant. So maybe the background of the film is essentially your character, Joseph, drug addict, gets arrested, has to go live with his grandfather. It's very tenacious in the relationship and such. So, and then the movie goes on from there. So, but I guess, just how does this concept, because every movie has to start with someone putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard. So how this concept for this film in particular come to you?
Well, films are definitely made up of like a million ideas that you have. And so it's always the one that kind of sparks something and you kind of chase that down the path and you kind of pick all the good berries that you can along the path as you go. And so the initial idea, I think, started with you.
Yeah, the initial idea was what would happen if you put two men together who have pushed everybody in their lives away from them. They're running from themselves. They're running from their past. They're running from their problems. Jason's a drug addict. He's pushed everyone who loves him out of his life, including his stepmother, who's given everything for him, and a grandfather who has PTSD from Vietnam, who's carrying an amount of guilt about his experience in the war around with him. And he's pushed everybody out of his life, so he lives on a ranch completely by himself and has for 20 years. You take two people who've pushed everybody out of their lives and you lock them up in a room together via some circumstances of home arrest. And suddenly, two men who don't know each other, who don't want each other in their lives, are forced to live together. And I thought, well, what an interesting premise for a story. What would come out in those moments? What would we find? And what you get is kind of the slow peeling away of layers of onions, so to speak, until you got two men kind of at their own wits' end and in a raw emotional state. And that makes for great drama.
Yeah. Do you find that you incorporate pieces of real life and your own experiences or people into some of the screenwriting?
I think you can't help but do that. That's one thing that I always try to remain unaware of when I'm creating, of how much I'm doing that, because then I'll just get in my own head about that. But I mean, you have to draw from what you know and what you've experienced and what you learn. And so, absolutely, I think drawing from things, and it's funny because sometimes you get done with a project and then you realize, oh, that was connected to this, and you kind of start to put the pieces together about how personal it was for you or why it was personal for you. But I definitely think that in my case for this character, since I hadn't had experiences with drugs before, I had to learn, what that was like to portray that accurately. And so that meant a lot of research just on my own, preparing, watching documentaries, watching anything I could to try to understand this and developing his backstory very thoroughly to see what exactly happened throughout his life leading up to this film to kind of make a full life so that it doesn't feel like his life starts with the films and ends with the film. I want it to exist outside of it. And so then after I kind of developed him, I went and talked to a lot of recovering drug addicts or recovered drug addicts. And they were just so helpful in pointing me in the right directions and very vulnerable with me, sharing their story and what had happened to them. And I wanted to develop my own personal backstory for the character first so that I wasn't stealing, their exact experiences for the film. But everything that, this was just God working, I guess. Everything that I came to them and asked them about, or everything that I heard about their experiences, matched up with what I was already planning and what I was already thinking. So, yeah, it was a cool experience to see how God worked that way too.
Yeah, the film itself is about a family who's torn apart by addiction and other problems, and they have to find themselves and reform as a family at the end. So the end has a very inspirational, hopeful message to it. It's a gritty, hard ride because that's a hard life that hurts a lot of people along the way. And but when you get to the end, we found that the people who came that we invited to the premiere who had helped counsel Joseph with addiction were just in tears at the end because it's a reminder that no matter how far down you've fallen, you can still get back up again. And a family can love you once again and you can reconnect as a group. And that's what the film's about. So I think a lot of people find the ending very emotional because it feels authentic in its struggles. It feels authentic in its recovery as well. And that's offering hope for a lot of people.
I want to go back to some casting topics. And, earlier we were talking about some of the other films that you did, David, you casted Joseph in a role. And you mentioned that the casting call was for a teenage boy with cancer. So I'm assuming, Joseph, you had cancer. Is that right?
No, I hadn't. That was another sort of thing that I had to research a lot and talk to a lot of people about, to try to find that, yeah, and portray that accurately.
We put Joe through the ringer. He's played a boy dying of cancer. He's played a young man with autism. He's played a drug addict, and he really hasn't had experience in any of these areas. So it takes a really talented, unique actor who can then pull off something like that with authenticity. And it takes someone who's going to care enough to talk to people who really live in that situation and find out what it's really like and then channel all those feelings. And that's why I think Joe's such a gifted actor, is because you do believe with all sincerity his roles when he takes them on, because he works so hard and try to live them out before he ever steps in front of a camera.
And so, Joe, was acting something you did in high school as you were growing up, or is this something you've acquired or just thought you would have a passion for?
Yeah, so I grew up doing the Barter Youth Academy. It's a youth program here in Virginia, and that was actually started by this man. And so he had started that program, and I yeah, had been doing theater. I think since I was about 7 years old, played Peter Pan, and that was pretty much it. I was pretty locked in from there. So I always loved it. I always loved the process, not only just being on stage, but just the development process, the rehearsal process, building a character. And David is just so skilled. He's been an actor for however many years
Since the dawn of time.
Sure. And so, he just all of his wisdom and guidance, not only theatrically, but then kind of learning how to take a lot of those principles and apply them to film, because film and theater is a little bit different. It's all the same guidelines, it's all the same foundation, but it expresses itself a little bit differently when you have a camera right here instead of an audience, 200 feet away from you. And so David has been, just a great mentor, and he knows how to work with actors and how to train them and how to get them to where he needs them to be. And he knows how to give you space for you to find it yourself, which is so important. And he knows this because he's been doing it himself for a long time.
So for Searching for the Elephant, how did you put this cast together, and, the selection for, your mother and the grandfather and everything in between?
It's a unique situation. I think what a lot of independent filmmakers struggle with is finding talent to be in their films. I mean, often these are very low budget projects, and when people are like, get Uncle Bob to come play the butcher or whatever, they'll tap into people they know. And often the films may suffer a little bit because some of the acting talent maybe doesn't have as much experience as you would like. And even though I mentioned we live in a small town in Southwest Virginia, here in this town we have what's called the Barter Theater, which is a regional equity professional theater that has about 20 full-time year-round actors who have been professional actors for many, many decades in some cases. I worked at that theater for about 12 years, and so that's where I started the Youth Academy. So I have friends here in town who are very seasoned, experienced veteran actors who happen to live in a small town and work at a theater here. So it's a really unique situation. And because I ran the youth program, I know about 100 young kid actors that can fill pretty much any actor role that I need for film. So I'm really blessed in that all these resources for fantastic actors are right here at my fingertips. They're friends of mine. They're people I've worked with for a dozen years. And I really have a lot of great people to draw from. We actually brought in Sharon, who plays the stepmom. We cast her through a casting agency in Georgia. And that's the first film we've been able to bring in someone from the outside, from the professional world, to take the role. We were looking for someone to play Jason's mother, and Sharon auditioned amongst probably 40 or 50 other people. And she was just so head and shoulders above everybody else that she auditioned for that we changed and rewrote the script to make her his stepmother so that she could play the role. And the chemistry between her and Joseph was fantastic.
She's amazing.
She's an amazing actress and a beautiful human being to work with, and just brought so much joy to the set. We had such a great time with her. The other one we brought in is Libby, who plays the veterinarian, and she is actually the younger sister of For King and Country, the Smallbone family. Or if you're my age, you might remember Rebecca St. James being a very popular Christian music artist. She's all their baby sister. And so we didn't know that when he cast her. I didn't know Smallbone name. I knew those artists, but I didn't know their Smallbone name. So when we cast her, our second callback, we found out who she was and that she was connected to all these Christian music family organizations. And she turned out to be a great surprise and a great joy. And she even contributed a song at the end of the movie in the credits. She wrote an original song that we used in the film as well.
Wow. Again, just kind of incredible how things come together for this. So searching for the elephant, of course, then you go into the filming stage. So you've casted everybody, you're doing your table reads, all of that. So then you come together. How long did it take you to film this movie?
It was about a month.
Yeah, a month solid of shooting.
A month solid of shooting. So yeah, and the days that you do when you're shooting a film, especially in a month, you're doing at least 12-hour days every day. And so it's pretty grueling. But we had such a great crew to work with, such a great cast and crew. They cared so much about the project, and who went there and did their jobs and stayed in their lanes. But it was so fun to see how everyone collaborated together as well and got really passionate about the project. And in the end, we had a lot of situations where, we were directing, but the best idea won at the end of the day. And that was kind of fun to collaborate with everyone.
It's funny, we talk about faith-based filmmaking. It truly is a step of faith, because when we're writing the scripts, we try not to limit ourselves. But the logistics are, when we looked at the script, we had to have a ranch. And it's hard to find a ranch just sitting around available to shoot a movie in. We also had to have a prison for the prison scenes. Where do you find a prison? So it's one of those things you look at and go, well, okay, we need a ranch and we need a prison. And we can't just, make a bedroom with some bars in it and call it a prison and expect it to be believable. So we got out there, and we looked around, and we talked, and we found a ranch, an 800-acre ranch that had some cattle on it, but was not being used. And the house on this ranch was well over 120 years old, but had been redone for a bed and breakfast type idea that they were working on. So we actually were able to rent the ranch, make it our camp base. So we're able to base all of our equipment, all of our crew. Some of our crew stayed in the ranch house as a housing for the whole event. And we were able to use this ranch for an entire month and rent it because it was available. And those kind of things just don't fall out of the sky very often. And when we needed a prison, it just so happened that a county prison here in our district had been closed 8 months before and was sitting empty. So it was a fully functional prison 8 months before, but was now completely empty. And the sheriff was gracious enough to just let us come in and film some scenes inside there. And it's just like those kind of things, you just have to step out in faith and just say, God's big enough for whatever you need. And just when you write your story, write for what you want to write for, and then let the details work themselves out.
Yeah, I'm in Wisconsin, and there was a filmmaker who did a film, and it's interesting because he shot this film maybe back in 2007, 2008. Then I think there was some corruption of the files and whatnot,
Oh.
and the
Mhm.
movie didn't hit a film festival until, well, when my documentary came out. So it was probably because we were at the same film festival. So probably like 2021, so it was this long time in between shooting the film and whatnot. But he had a prison scene, and so he knew that in Door County, Wisconsin, that in a museum underneath there was kind of the setup of a prison or a jail cell. And so he made use of the museum in order to shoot that jail scene that he needed. So it worked for his purposes. But yeah, you got to get creative in finding these things.
Yeah, and you have to ask,
Yeah, you just have to, yeah.
It's always worth a ask and talking to people. And it was a very surreal experience being actually locked inside a cell and kind of being in that space and everything that it meant to that character.
It was oppressive. That whole day shooting was being inside a maximum security prison was a very oppressive feeling. It was really hard. One interesting story is that we had the courtroom, where they play basketball and it has the sun and there's razor wire around the top. We had a scene scheduled to shoot in that courtroom, in that courtyard there at the prison. And when we got there, the door was bolted shut. So we went to the sheriff and go, oh, hey, we need the key to this door so we can go in and start setting up for the scene. He's like, oh, I'm not sure where that key is. So we're like, oh no, this is an iron bolted door, like double layer, double pane glass. This door's not going anywhere.
And we don't have another day to shoot
We
this.
don't have another day. This is all that we
Now
have.
and ever.
And we planned the entire scene around this courtyard, having planned it ahead of time. So one of our tech crew got in there and got into the gears, was able to open the door from the inside and literally broke into a maximum security prison in order for us to shoot the scene.
Oh, wow.
So we got to shoot it. It's in the film. You can see it there, and the scene looks great. I mean, we were so glad we got it, but it was a little touch and go there for a bit.
Yeah. We have some innovative people like Nick Hester's on our team. That's also what you need.
I think one of the things people don't realize that when you shoot a film is that you don't shoot it from beginning to end, but you shoot, certain spots at certain times, and then so like, you might be shooting 3 separate scenes, one that's at the 15-minute marker, one at 45 minutes, and one at so it's not a sequential shooting. And then you have to go through that editing process. So describe how you edit a film.
Well, we're very fortunate. For this film, we had Kevin Peoples, who did the Kendrick Brothers Life Mark movie. He was the director and editor for that film. Very experienced and very knowledgeable, and was right there from the beginning to really help work us through with editing. And it was a joyful process all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the editing process. A lot of directors say this, and I kind of agree that, shooting the film is what you have to go through for the prize of getting into the editing room. You get to, I could spend forever in the editing space, just perfecting, just seeing if you take one frame off of this shot, how that affects it, when you really get into the details of everything. And so I absolutely love that. But Kevin Peoples was absolutely incredible and put up with all of our really nitpicky,
Crazy ideas.
Crazy ideas. Yeah.
We had a scene that we shot for the beginning of the film, but we shot it with a very young boy. It was my grandson, actually, who does just a little part. And he was having a really rough night that night. We were shooting, and so we were only able to get bits and pieces of the scene that we needed for him. So Kevin had to re-envision the entire scene in the editing suite and put it together. So the editing mix you see in the movie at the beginning of the film is not exactly how it was written. It was created in the editing suite after the film. And it turned out to be a beautiful beginning for the film, and it worked out perfectly. And you'd never know the hours of trouble we had trying to get those lines delivered. My grandson just kept looking at the camera. He'd deliver a line, but he'd look right at the lens of the camera, like, oh, no, buddy, you can't do that. You got to look at the other guy. Look, so it was one of those nights where it's like, I don't know what we're gonna do. I don't know if we left that night going, I don't know if we have anything we can use. But when
Yeah.
the editing suite, you can really mold a person's performance. You can change the timing of the acting delivery. You can change the way the lines are delivered in some ways, but the editing, you can change where the camera looks. You can change so much, especially in this modern era of technology. You can really shape a scene in the editing suite and really be excited about the product you had, even if you were worried about it while you were shooting.
And he took a very quiet scene and turned it into a very exhilarating, fast-paced opening, and just kind of really re-envisioned the entire sequence, and for the better. It's the film is much better because of it. So
And
he's incredible.
an editor's a powerful person on your crew. So make sure you got somebody who knows editing because they can make or break your film. They really can.
And they shape your performance. My performance isn't done when the cameras shut off. That's the editor has a huge influence on an actor's performance, and they can make you look any type of way. They can make you look really good or really bad. So definitely make friends with your editor.
Be nice to your editor.
So for this movie, when we talk about Christian movies, we talk about faith-based films, kind of always lower budget. So what kind of a budget were you working with? And, are you satisfied with how you were able to make this product with the budget that you had?
Very satisfied with how we're able to make the film with the budget that we had. I mean, it was the kind of thing, like David was saying, where I was blissfully unaware of how much everything would normally cost and what we were shooting for, I guess, with the budget that we had. And so I was feeling confident all the way through that we would be able to acquire what we needed, and we were able to in the end. But it was kind of through God's grace of just getting connected to the right people at the right time who had the right resources. That was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And so we made this film on a very low budget, and
They call it no budget.
Yeah.
It's so low, it's called no budget. It's not a low budget film, it's a no budget film. But we were accused at the premiere of it being about $1 million budget. That's how it looks. Like I said, it was one of those things that it was just blessings along the way. We had great talent working on the film, and they were able to take some stones and make stone soup out of it. And the film looks like $1 million film, but we spent a tenth of that making the film. The films, it was our highest budget as our little company, our faith-based company. It's the highest budget film we had made yet. Each film's been more higher budget than the one before. We've been able to work off the success of the films that we have because our films are distributed globally. They're on PureFlix, they're on Amazon Prime, they're on Tubi, they're on Apple TV. They're out there generating some revenue so that we can make the next film a little better than the one before. It's like a snowball effect, and that's really common in filmmaking. You have to start. That first little film we made, Cross Purposes, was a $9,000 film that we shot, like I said, over about 6 days. And that's how we started this company. And now this last one was 10 times that budget. And now it's growing each time. So every time you build on it, if you're successful and God blesses your work, then you just build on it and make a bigger and better film the next time around. More people see your work, they want to contribute to it, and all of a sudden you've got investors, and your film budget just grows each time around. So we're real excited about how things are progressing. But it is, it's a slow trek. It takes a lot of work and a lot of patience.
Yeah. Did you start out with like GoFundMe or finding backers or anything like that?
No, we did the $9,000 film. We start off with the $9,000 budget, which we just money that we had available to us. That was ours, basically. And then all the films have been funded by the revenues from the previous films since then.
That's great.
And we've made 5 films in 5 years, so it's been a rapid process. Each time more exciting than the time before.
You mentioned that one of the films you've done previously went to film festivals. Is that something you did with Searching for the Elephant? Did you go to any film festivals for that?
Searching for the Elephant is kind of unique in that it is, from our perspective, it's a faith-based film. It is a little rougher because it is about addiction. It's got some intense scenes in it. It's got a little bit of mild language in it because we just felt like we couldn't tell this story it doesn't have offensive words in it because as Christians, we don't want offensive words in there. It just has rude words, a couple of them. Ones that if you watch movies anytime, you'd not even notice they're in there. They're so mild. But to us and to the film festival circuit, that's kind of a no-go for them. So for that reason, we put it in a secular film festival and got some awards there for it. And we've not pursued the same marketing technique with this one as we have with all of our previous films, which have all gone through the Christian Film Festival circuit and are distributed on Christian platforms all over the place. So this one's been a little bit different just because of the nature of it and the nature of the characters. It's just a little too much for some Christian film festivals, so we didn't even put it in this time around.
It's a tough balance of it's a hard story and it's portraying characters who live a certain way and have a tough life, and so you want to portray that accurately, without being offensive. So giving a taste of that to really, because what I think is so important, that a thing that film does is it really puts you in someone's perspectives and makes you get up really close to someone that you might not ever want to get close to in real life, but you're forced for 2 hours to kind of get up close to them and understand them and empathize with them and see where they're coming from and what they're struggling with, especially in this case. And so I think that's a really important thing that film can do. And so we wanted to do that accurately. And so next time, you're walking down the street and you see a Jason, maybe you look at them differently and you empathize or understand them in a different way. And so we wanted to portray them accurately, but it's definitely a rougher film because of that. But we went to some other festivals, and then we did go to one Christian festival, the Red Letter Awards, and we won Best Film there.
Yeah.
And so that was great. But
they were not sensitive to it. They were willing to take a look at it, even with a little mild language in it, and they gave it an award for Best Film. It's one of those things that when you're making a decision as a Christian and a filmmaker, it's always important that right be portrayed as right and wrong be portrayed as wrong. And I get really offended by films that try to make wrong things seem right. And they glorify wrong behavior and wrong attitudes and wrong language. And they try to make it seem like it's cool and hip and everyone should be cool with it. In our films, the language gets a little bit rough, but it's shown as being abrasive and being hard. And by the end, it all fades away, because there's a lot more light and a lot more warmth in their bodies and in their minds and souls. And so it tends to be considered as part of the problem. And so in that sense, we hope that people will understand the need for it in storytelling and be able to understand that it is a sad state of affairs of our world's condition, but they find the hope and inspiration on the other end.
So for the distribution, and first of all, you had a premiere you mentioned, so probably invited families and actors to this premiere and other people that would be interested. Did you get any time on the big screen playing at a local theater or anything like that?
we actually did. Yeah, we played for, I don't know, a month or something.
Yeah, it ran. We were just supposed to play it for a week and ended up running. They extended the run for 4 more weeks because it was outselling their other films. So it actually ran for about 5 weeks in a local theater. So the first night was just our premiere, and then they were going to run it for a few shows after that. And it sold so well, they just kept renewing it week after week after week, and they kept it in there for about 5 weeks.
So it was kind of fun to, randomly just go and pop in the back of the theater and and watch, a theater full of people react to the film for the first time, and just kind of, I was just kind of watching them more than I was actually watching the actual film.
It's not like your mom and dad, it's like, it's one thing when they watch your movie, like they all love whatever you do, but when it's just random people buying tickets and watching your film, it's fun to watch their reactions to see if what you thought would hit them the way you hoped it would. Mm-hmm. So it's really exciting to sit and watch that. The audiences are much more fun to watch for us than the actual film.
And how do you get on Tubi and Apple TV and all that?
Through a distribution hub. There's the companies that basically will take your film and will put it out there in all these different venues. They'll submit it to these film places, and then they'll add them to their venues. And it's a long, laborious process to get your film out there. But once you do, it's great because it's globally. You can see it pretty much anywhere. So it is a process. We've done most of our films through Bridgestone Media Group, that's their whole job. They pick up films and they put it through their network. and places like Daystar Satellite Network and CBN Television and Shorts TV and all these. So these other films of ours are probably on 30 or 40 different platforms around the world. They've been dubbed into Portuguese for South America, and they've been, which means like Joseph's voice was replaced by a Portuguese actor. And so he can watch the film and hear someone else delivering all of his lines, which is a surreal experience. And then it's been like subtitled in like Hindi for India. So people there can just read the bottom of the screen and see it in their own language. So it's been really exciting to see it go in different places around the world.
Yeah. And Searching for the Elephant was distributed through Frontgate. So that's another distribution company who's kind of doing the same process and putting it through and seeing where they can get it, what streaming services, are interested in what they can find for us.
Yeah, they'll contact like a Hulu and they'll talk to them personally. They'll submit the film to them and try to pitch it and get it on there. It's tough because those places want big celebrity names. And as I told you, we filmed our film here in Southwest Virginia with us, so we don't have any big, as good as Joe is, he's not quite famous yet. So when Hulu sees the film, they're like, the film looks great, but it doesn't have Keanu Reeves in it. So why do we care?
Yeah.
So it's real tough to get into those level platforming places, but places like Amazon Prime, they'll consider a film whether it's got a big name celebrity or not.
Now, how did you come up and name it Searching for the Elephant? Is it because of the elephant in the room, or what's the basis for the title?
That came about that eventually in the film they kind of have a moment of explaining that, but the idea behind Searching for the Elephant.
Well, it wasn't the original name. It was originally called Due North.
Oh, that's
Is
true.
that right? Yeah,
Yeah,
it changed.
it was.
But I found an expression online. It was a ranching expression. It's what ranchers, when they would hire their work hands at one point in the year, they kind of hire a bunch of men to come work on their ranch. And there was always a couple of men who were just there until they got a better job offer somewhere else. They were never intending to stay. They were just like, this was a convenient stopover. I'm not really here to work. I'm just here until I can get a better paycheck.
They're always searching for the next best thing instead of satisfied where they are. And
Yeah.
so they would say they're searching for the elephant. They're searching for something that they're never going to catch. They're never going to find. They're always looking for the best thing that's next, and they don't realize what they have in front of them. They're searching for the elephant. So that's kind of where that came from.
Okay.
It's a cowboy term. So we adopted it as the name of the film.
Okay. Now there are lots of movies out there. You mentioned all the different places you could watch film, that you're on PureFlix, Great American, PureFlix, so forth. So just wondering, what's a movie recently that you've seen that you'd recommend?
Oh gosh, we watch a lot of movies.
I
We
bet.
really watched a lot. I thought A Complete Unknown was a great film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought the music was fantastic. I thought the actors transcended being the actors and actually became the people for me. And I didn't know a lot. Bob Dylan's a little bit before my time, and I didn't appreciate his music as much, but I really enjoyed the quality of the work in that film. I thought they did a great job with it.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed A Complete Unknown. I thought it should have won something at the Academy Awards, but anyways.
Yes,
Yeah.
I thought too. I was a little surprised that it didn't. I mean, it got its due though. I think it'll do fine.
Yeah,
So-
I think I was really impressed recently with The Brutalist, and probably also because they're a lower budget film, especially for what they were aspiring to. And
yeah.
so I think that was just kind of inspiration, or just kind of the story behind the film itself, and just how they were able to kind of scrape together, things and have things fall into place for them to make this film that looks
Spent their own money.
spent
In some
on
cases,
money,
yeah,
the
they were really-
filmmakers, they were that passionate about it, and they went and made this film that looks like a 50 80 million dollar film maybe, and were able to make it for 10. And so I think that was just a really cool process to hear about behind the scenes, and then to see that done in film. And I love it's an older type of film, and so it has an intermission that comes up, and like 15 minutes in the middle of the
Which was
thing.
great. I think
It's
we
so
should bring
fun.
that back, especially with 3-hour movies. We need to
Loved
bring
it.
the intermission back.
It was
'Cause
so
it was
fun.
so nice to get to go have a break and go get some popcorn
And
and then
talk
come
to people
and
about
talk about it and then
what you
come back and
thought.
see Act Two. I mean, I think, Wicked was long. It could have had an intermission.
Wicked was good too. I'll throw that in there. That was a good film as well. But it could have had an intermission.
It could have had an intermission. Most of the films nowadays could have an intermission. I think
Yeah.
they're long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. So people can head over to Tubi, Apple TV, you said. Is Searching for the Elephant on Great American Pureflix too, as well?
No, for the same reason with the film festival, it's got a
Okay.
couple of words in it, so that made it not eligible for that. So
I see.
it's like I said, you're going to go to Amazon Prime or some places like
Okay.
that to find it.
Sure. Well, that's great. And if people want to learn more just about kind of the movies you're making and want to find those movies, Cross Purposes, I'm sure has a website and social media.
It does, yeah. It's www.crosspurposes.productions. If you go there, all of our movies are listed there. Also, the links directly to what platforms you can watch them on, and again, they're all pretty family friendly. I mean, they're all there for the whole family. Elephant, I would say older teenagers and adults because of the intensity of the drug addiction and the family drama. There's, like I said, there's not a lot of depictions that would be a problem, but I'd say older kids and adults for that. But the other films are great for the family, but you can find them in all those places. So yeah, crosspurposes.productions will take you to the website and show you where all the films are.
Yeah. And we're on Instagram and Facebook and everything as well.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm gonna go give you a follow over there. Do you have another movie being written in the pipelines in production right now?
We do.
We do, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
We came across a story, a World War II drama story about the White Rose Resistance Group. And this is a group of Christian college kids in Munich, Germany, who were growing up and kind of hitting adulthood right as the Nazi regime was starting to take over Germany. So what they saw was the futures that their parents had and the freedoms that the people above them had were starting to be restricted and taken away. And so they started to watch neighbors be turned against neighbors, and they were kind of watching this slow creeping of Nazism that was taking over their culture. And so what they did is they knew, because of their faith, they knew right from wrong, and they saw what was going on was wrong. So they developed these newsletters, and they printed up anonymous newsletters and distributed them all over their college campuses, denouncing Hitler and denouncing Nazism and asking people to find out, to think about what's right and to make the right choices.
It was started by this brother and sister, and soon it became a whole resistance group, and there was protests, and there was graffiti being painted, and they were printing these leaflets. So they got 6 of them out, and then the Gestapo started hunting them because it was really making a change in the community and in different cities throughout Germany.
And bringing up ideas that they did not want people to think about.
Yeah.
So these kids it was a peaceful, nonviolent movement. It was all about ideas. It was all about getting their thoughts out there. And so we were doing a story about them. We've written a screenplay about their story, and it's quite dramatic and quite exciting. We're shooting a short film version of it later this year. So right now we're getting together the funding, the backers, and we're getting the people behind us, and we're talking to some people in the UK who are maybe going to co-produce the short with us and see if we can get this made, the short film made, and then hopefully it'll launch into the full production of the full-length drama.
And the reason we're doing that is because we're shooting for a lot larger of a production here than we've ever done before. And so we're talking with a producer about doing this full film, but we want to do it correctly with the right budget to really accomplish the vision that we're hoping for. And so, but we are pretty much unknowns at this point, and so we can't really be pitched as the face of a project yet. And so we're going to go and make this short as a proof of concept, so we have something to take to studios and to backers to say, this is what the film will look like, this is what it will feel like, this is what it's about, and just have a little short film that kind of encompasses the story, and you can show that to them, and then they can have faith in that story itself, and hopefully the full feature film will get off the ground.
A short is what, 28 minutes or a little longer?
It can
than that,
range.
or
I mean,
shorter.
Yeah, this one will be about 20 minutes. It can really range from 3 to 5 minutes to about 40 minutes. I think once you start getting above there, they start considering it a mini movie or a feature film. So it can really range, but ours will be about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I definitely would think like, what is it, Kingdom Story Company or
Hmm.
Lionsgate?
Hmm.
I think those are some of your targets right there for a movie like that with some of
Yeah.
the things that they produced here in the last few years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping to aim it to. So that's why we want to take them a piece of it so they can see the film for itself and see what the potential it has and what it can become.
We've floated our feature script around to some producers and to some other artists and everything, and gotten a lot of excitement about the feature script and how it's written and how it encompasses their story. So we feel really confident about that, and we're really excited to hopefully bring it to life.
That's great. Well, good. This has been such a wonderful conversation. Just hearing about your own company, your own aspirations, and about Searching for the Elephant, available on a lot of different platforms that people could go watch. So, well, thanks so much for your time today and just sharing all about film.
Well,
Absolutely.
thank you for being interested, and we appreciate you inviting us and having us on your podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I appreciate it.
If you liked today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. And don't forget to stay up to date with what Father Edward is doing by following him on Facebook, X, or Instagram at the handle @FREdwardLooney. Thanks for listening, and please join Father Edward again next time for another inspiring conversation.